I'm Juliette Goodrich. Images of the destruction in Baltimore have left Bay Area bridge commuters shocked.
I'd never seen anything like that before. A bridge just collapsed in seconds.
So the question tonight, would our local bridges hold up during a large-scale collision?
Even things that happen very, very rarely do sometimes happen.
And an ex-con who is struggling to get back on his feet.
When I got out of prison in 2010 and I applied to jobs everywhere, nobody would hire me.
How he's now using his passion for coffee to give others like him a shot at a new start. And a local tech entrepreneur joins Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in his bid for the White House.
This is CBS News Bay Area with Juliette Goodrich.
We have 8 toll bridges right here in the Bay Area. Baltimore's catastrophic collapse has us a lot wondering, could it happen here? Well, dramatic video shows just how quickly the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed, and authorities say it happened early in the morning after a cargo ship lost power and rammed into the bridge's column. Then in a matter of seconds, the span crumbles into the water. Video of the aftermath shows a section of the bridge on top of the vessel's bow. 6 missing construction workers who were filling potholes on the bridge at the time of the collapse are now presumed dead. The search for their bodies will resume tomorrow. 2 other people who fell into the water were rescued. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says it is just too early to tell when the wreckage will be cleared. It is expected to disrupt commuter and cargo traffic for a while. You know, the images may be unnerving for many of us who cross a bridge here in the Bay Area to get to work every day. Among them is Bernie. I talked to him earlier today along the Embarcadero.
When I thought about the Bay Bridge, could that happen to us as well? And then the civilians also, people that commute in and out every single day, that becomes a huge concern. So naturally, we all as people that commute back and forth for work, that becomes a huge concern for us.
We talked with Caltrans about the chances of something like this happening here. They said it's unlikely because of fenders on the bridges. They are barriers on the bridge foundations designed to crumble and absorb the energy of a hit so the barge wouldn't even touch the bridge.
So that's another advantage to California. Because of the earthquakes, we've had to design our bridges so that they can absorb energy. So even if you get the bridge actually being touched, all of our bridges have got the ability to move a little bit.
The Bay Bridge has had its own crashes with cargo ships in the past. In fact, back in 2013, an empty oil tanker caused minor damage when it struck the base of a tower on the bridge. The overseas Raymar was headed out to sea after unloading crude oil at the Martinez refinery. And in 2007, another container ship hit the Bay Bridge, spilling 52,000 gallons of fuel oil. Crews spent months cleaning up the damage from the Costco Busan. The ship's pilot and 2 shipping companies responsible for the spill paid $44.4 million in a settlement. Amanda Harry has more on how those incidents have helped local transit officials prepare for the worst.
Captivating footage of what's left behind of the Francis Scott Key Memorial Bridge, a Baltimore landmark crumpled into pieces after a cargo ship crushed the bridge early Tuesday morning.
I'm not an engineer, but that just looked like this is the worst case scenario.
John Goodwin with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission says he's lived and worked in the Bay Area for decades. The tragedy today had him flashing back to 2007. When the Costco Busan hit a tower of the Bay Bridge. While the container ship was damaged, the Bay Bridge maintained its structural integrity. He says nearly 2 decades later, they continue to work on improving protecting the Bay Bridge and the rest of the bridges.
The Bay Area is seeking a grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation to upgrade the fender system on the Bay Area bridges. It's officially known as the Ship Collision Protection System.
That would be an approximately $167 million upgrade to the bridges. Goodwin says these protections would hopefully protect local bridges from collapsing like the bridge in Baltimore. But ultimately, there's only so much they can prepare for.
We can do planning for a lot of different scenarios, but reality has a way of coming out one step ahead of preparation.
Similar cargo ships like the one in Baltimore pass under the Bay Bridge every day. An incident like this morning would be an all-hands-on-deck situation. The state's Office of Emergency Services would activate units from California Highway Patrol, Caltrans, and many others, including the Water Emergency Transportation Authority.
We prepare for incidents. We have exercises on a regular basis. Not just us as an agency, but all of our captains and deckhands undergo rigorous training.
Thomas Hall with WIDA says the ferry system would shut down to utilize those boats in any way that would help.
Part of our mission at San Francisco Bay Ferry is to provide emergency water transit if any of the bridges or other trans-bay transportation systems are disabled.
Both organizations are constantly working to create better safety plans and keep their crews ready for anything that could happen. But Goodwin says he understands that the community may still be concerned after what happened in Baltimore.
Even things that happen very, very rarely do sometimes happen.
And stay with us for updates on the Baltimore Bridge collapse. We'll continue to update this story on air and on KPIX.com. The family of two brothers killed at a house party in Oakland is calling for justice after a controversial charging decision by Alameda County DA Pamela Price. 15-year-old Angel and 17-year-old JC Sotelo Garcia were shot to death in October of 2022. The alleged gunman was only 17 years old at the time. He is now over 18, but the DA recently decided to keep the case in juvenile court, a move that the family says is irresponsible and painful.
The defendant has not been sentenced yet. So 7 years is the max that he can get. He could get 1, or he could get none. There's nothing that anybody could do to bring back Angel and JC. They can help us heal, help us feel as though there has been justice and closure for our boys.
But today, family members of other crime victims gathered in Oakland saying they understand the Garcia family's pain, but they stand with the DA, saying sending teens to adult prisons only perpetuates a cycle of trauma and violence. Among the speakers today, John Vasquez, who was sentenced to 25 years in prison as a 16-year-old.
They sent me to a maximum security prison with no rehabilitative opportunities, treatment, or programs to address the specific needs of young people. I was exposed to adult-initiated violence. One of the guards even told me, "Hey, youngster, do yourself a favor and hang yourself. You're never getting out of here."
But he did get out, earned 6 degrees, and now he runs an Oakland nonprofit that focuses on youth violence prevention and restorative justice. Many ex-prisoners are not as lucky when it comes to getting back on their feet. According to the Bureau of Justice, more than 60% of those who serve time can't find a job a year after leaving prison. But an Oakland business owner is trying to change all of that. Itai Hod takes us inside a coffee shop that's giving ex-cons a shot at a new life.
Big House Beans Coffee Shop in the heart of Oakland. Owner John Kraus is brewing more than just a cup of joe. For the last decade, John has been on a caffeinated crusade to blend passion with purpose.
When I got out of prison in 2010 and I applied to jobs everywhere, nobody would hire me.
With the help of family and friends, he opened his own coffee shop with a stated mission to give a second shot to ex-cons and recovering addicts.
How are you today?
But soon he realized that
anything else for you today
was a tall order.
Is it a large or a small?
Many of his employees would relapse, leaving John with no one to tend to the customers.
We had a high turnover rate. We just couldn't keep hiring and training. It's very costly to do that.
That's when an idea began to percolate. He partnered up with City Team, a nonprofit faith-based organization that helps people get back on their feet.
They have meals, they have a bed, and they're staying busy over there.
More importantly, they have wraparound services that keep them grounded. Francisco Garcia is a recovering addict. He says his biggest challenge has been staying sober.
There's a big temptation to go back out and drink And then you're thinking, oh, it's easy to just take one drink, but no, one drink leads to another. How are we doing?
What's kept him on the right track, he says, is the responsibility that comes with a job.
I finished step 12.
Coupled with one-on-one mentoring at City Team.
All of our men and women have case managers. They meet with
Stephen Martinez is City Team's executive director. He says a job and a bed are essential to recovery, but it's the comprehensive wraparound services that make it sustainable.
There's a lot of accountability here that helps people feel like they're not alone.
That's about how much you want to fill up the 12-ounce.
For John, this new approach has meant being able to confidently hire more people like Francisco, while also growing his business.
What is your annual gross revenue now?
It's about $2 million.
$2 million.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It pays the bills.
Okay.
Now he's making good on his promise to serve fresh coffee along with a fresh start.
Oh, wow. What a role model, first of all, to his employees.
Absolutely.
And then, you know, it's key when you said those wraparound services, because it's not just go get a job. That'll be the answer. And it's not. You have to have the support, right? The cushion outside.
Yeah, and that's what he basically discovered, because his original plan was to have 100% of people who are formerly incarcerated, homeless, or people who are struggling with addiction, anyone who has any barriers to finding employment. And what he found, it was just not sustainable.
Yeah,
people
so how many does he have right now?
So now he has about 20% of his staff that is, you know, formerly incarcerated or people who have barriers. He's hoping to get that number up now that he's kind of figured out the recipe.
I have a feeling he will. Okay, coffee, how was it?
The coffee was amazing. I had to taste it, of course. Journalistic, you know, integrity.
Heck yes, yes.
But what I loved more about his coffee is he tries to buy it from villages where the supplier also invests back into those communities.
Wow.
So a little bit of social justice with your coffee.
Yeah, great story. All right, Itai, thank you.